Hey, man. He's got his, did you grow a beard for this? Come on, man.
Dude, not just for this. Dude, are you rocking a stash?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, man.
I mean, hey, there's talk about clouds and smoke, right? There's a dark cloud over banking. And as the numbers go down further and further and further, we're all a little getting, I'm trying to scream a little bit that, yes, you should be concerned. Yes, you should be scared. But at the same time, I think there's a message of hope here that is not being told of how cool this really is and how neat this really is. And, what's the future look like, man? I mean, this is such a cool time when you got banking and fintech and all the interesting integrations and neat stuff going on and opportunities. I mean, just what you came out with Atomic is fantastic. There's so many neat things like this that are happening. That message is not being told by the talking heads.
Right.
It's digital transformation. There'll be a dinosaur. You'll all die.
Well,
it's like, wait a minute.
I'll give you one
cool
to kick off, man. So we've been talking a lot about, I don't know if you want to call it buzzwords, right? But there's a lot of rhetoric out there that's at 10,000 feet, but you never hear any of the tactical detail, right? So digital transformation is a pretty good topic. A lot of the articles you read, a lot of the thought leaders or webinars that you watch, it's super high level conversation, but not necessarily tactical in gear, what specific steps you should take and do. And I think there's a lot of that, whether we're talking about APIs, digital transformation is a good one. FinTech is ultimate, right? What a big word. So there's a lot of that going on. What are you thinking about, I don't know, information, misinformation, buzzwords? What are you seeing? It just feels messy right now.
One of the things that I think is the most, so at Atomic, we're building these APIs that hopefully give people better flexibility in where they bank so that they don't have to get screwed over by somebody that is offering them a terrible experience. And they can change their relationship if they want to change it. But I think that's a big advantage for community FIs that are, very, service driven and deliver a great experience to their customer. For us at Atomic, what we do is we build connectivity into payroll systems that enable consumers to have a little bit more freedom in their banking relationship. And specifically, I think that'll be helpful to community banks that deliver a great customer experience. And it'll not be good for those that don't. I also think that as more and more of this gets commoditized by all these neobanks entering the space, you're going to have to deliver a really intensely on customer experience more than you ever have before. And one of the cool things that I've seen in the last year or two is, a lot of banks have said things like, hey, we'll give you $500 if you open an account and put a direct deposit on file, or things like that in the first 3 months. And I think the financial institutions that do it best will try to prolong the benefits of signing up with them and try to make them happen over time. So you look at companies like Yada, and Yada is a fascinating one that is coming in and saying, we'll do a daily drawing for, like a raffle that people can get their interest back, right? But they essentially, the way I see it, they essentially take that upfront cost. They might give somebody $200 for signing up for an account or something like that with them. And they spread it out over these interest payments that are a lot smaller than that, but they spread it out over the first year or 2 years, right? And it's like, and if you get a direct deposit, you get more raffle tickets. And so they're incentivizing this behavior over time, building a deep relationship with the consumer. And I think banks that can do that, I think people are going to get pretty surprised in the next couple of years that hey, $500 offer isn't that interesting, because somebody's just going to switch. They're going to take advantage of it and they're going to switch on to the next one. But if you can build the deep relationship with somebody over time, that's where I think the value gets added on the consumer side.
I've thought a lot about this, man.
This is great.
To me, there's a lot of talk about financial literacy, right? Another one of those big buzzword topics, but there's not a lot of tactical detail. I think you just hit on one. So John Burns, right? Mocha, he was behind BankView, behind Funds Express, and he talked over, the last 20, 25 years that they really figured out the concept of, if you want to change behavior, you need to reward them or pay them. And I think that's what you're describing, right? And I think that goes hand in hand with financial literacy. If I show somebody what good behavior looks like, how to be a better customer, then I reward you for that, then that's actually helping your financial health as well as financial relationship between you and I as a customer. It's kind of cool, right?
I agree. one of the other companies that's doing this really well is HM Bradley. So HM Bradley came along and they're like, hey, look, we're going to give, if you put your direct deposit on file with us and do a couple of other things over a 3-month period, then you'll get this high interest rate. But if you drop your direct deposit from them, interest rate goes away. And their average balances are insanely high.
Yes.
Now they're incentivizing. So a traditional bank would look at me like, well, I can't make anything on the 3% that they're offering, right? But is there some middle ground where you can find where a consumer is always being incentivized and rewarded for keeping their money with you, for banking with you? And I moved over my primary banking relationship for the first time since since I got into FinTech like 12 years ago. I finally moved over. I now have a mortgage payment coming out of my HM Bradley account. I now have my credit card payment coming out of my HM Bradley account. I've done all these things. And I'm like, we get criticized sometimes in the FinTech community. Yeah, but do you bank with a neobank? And I'm close. I'm probably like 75% of the way there.
The other thing is if I've got to go to 7 apps right now, I don't know a lot of young people that really care about that. And I got 7 apps, no big deal, man. I do my card app, I do the thing app, I go over here to Facebook, I do whatever I do, Instagram. Okay, let's kind of bring that together a little bit, because I think each of these functions that FinTech is shining a light on is a banking function that a bank could probably do. So there's a symbiotic relationship and a teammate kind of approach that needs to happen here that hadn't quite got there. What do you think?
I agree. And like the other thing, going to the partner bank example, right? I sit on the board of a bank in Colorado. I love being on the board of that bank. They've done some really neat partnership stuff in the self-directed IRA 401k space that most people had not touched to date. And it's made them very, very successful. They're one of the top performing banks in the United States for their assets class, for their asset size. But if you look at those, they have the dynamics that, like if you look at a Chime, if they're getting a percentage of interchange, well, the bank can get the full interchange, right? And that's not an insignificant amount typically. And most banks just never thought that interchange game was the game to play until Chime came along and said, we can get 12 million people to do it with us, or 12 million accounts maybe, or whatever the number is, right? That can come and do this on us. And I think that the partner banks are seeing all these cool FinTech opportunities, and they're seizing, and that's the fun thing for them is they get to look at 50 opportunities in a month and say, oh, here's the ones that are really good models for banking. And here are the entrepreneurs that have no idea what the FinTech market's really like or what financial services is really like. Throw those guys out, but keep these ones that are awesome models for banks and build on those.
Well, and I think, okay, so stick into the card space and debit a little bit. Look, banks damn sure understand interchange, right? Community banks understand better than anybody, probably Durbin, the 10 billion hump, right? But I don't know that FinTech really understands it all that well. You see, I'll tell you from looking at data, Jordan, I'm seeing a bunch of big FinTechs that are working with the big banks. You're getting smoked on interchange. You'd be making at least twice as much on interchange. And I know that they don't know it. I get those calls. You get those calls. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, what's Durbin? Right. But the community banks, I think, have a heck of an opportunity. And that's why we're seeing all the sponsor banks there, man. They're really kicking ass on that.
Almost all of the sponsor banks are below 10 billion.
Yeah. And
that's right.
The financials look great. I think we've shifted. I know FinTech's a big word and all the vendors are calling themselves FinTechs, right? We're all FinTechs now. But if you think back to how we've traditionally thought, you got sort of the challenger space. And they're trying to have, let's say, be a primary relationship, although it's a bit of a trimmed down profile from full service. And then you got the other side of FinTech, which is where I think we're all a lot more excited. It's the fractional pieces. Atomic is a great example, right? Different parts and pieces of things, and a lot of which require sponsor banks. How do you see that shaking out? I think the Varo example is interesting that, this let's be a full service and compete with bank model versus let's try and focus on a new niche and probably partner with banks. Do you see that shift a little bit? What do you think about it?
Yeah. So I think 3 years ago, I remember having a conversation with Dave and you about this specifically. And I think one of us made the prediction in that conversation, these people are going to start buying banks. And we actually left the conversation within a week. I think that what acquisition was that was announced? It was Radius Bank. That acquisition was announced within a week of that conversation we'd had. And I think that, I mean, the issue is you also see groups like Varo that have become a bank, and it will slow them down on the innovation side, I think, almost certainly. And so I think a lot of these are going to stay independent as long as they possibly can from, and they want the banking charter to be housed by somebody else and the regulations and everything associated with it, which eventually they have to get closer and closer. And they have to, anyway, the neobanks have to get regulated through the banks more than they are today, I think. I just think regulators are going to have to do that at some point.
Yeah, this is the cool story in fintech is that you're a great partner to a bank. You can make a bunch of money. Everybody can win here. Bankers, wake up. If you want to sell your bank, sell it to a fintech, man. They'll pay you more.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Get a better book, right? In the end, if you're the most successful fintech in the whole world, you almost are forced to become a bank because the cost and scale of everything. SoFi.
Can I touch one you said there, Jordan? Something we've been talking about, this fintech buying bank concept. It's actually great in the theme of community banks and communities because you don't lose a charter. If a bank buys another bank, one charter goes away. If a fintech buys a bank, like you talked about Radius, we still got that charter.
Well,
And so you
money.
probably still have that presence. I mean, it might shift, right? But you probably still have that community presence and the ethos is still there. I think it's positive. I mean, look, if I wanted to sell my bank, I'd go down the fintech path to do it. And it would be a lot better for America.
Yeah,
it would be. I know 2 fintechs right now that are trying to buy banks. The difficult thing is that it's hard to do from a regulatory perspective. One of the founders has to go buy it personally so that they can fold it in afterwards. And I've seen some other things with this other fintech. So, that's a really hard thing to have to go down to buy a bank. So it is. It's difficult. It's all those sorts of things.
We're seeing a lot of fintech folks actually becoming investors in banks.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, hey, does everybody need to read the end of that book?
Yeah.
But I mean, seeing that evolution, it's pretty cool to see that a lot of this is becoming methodical, and you can start to see some real trends emerging that I think a lot of which are good.
Well, Utah is unique. Utah DFI allows for industrial charter. So that is a way where basically, for everybody that doesn't really get that, you don't have to regulate the whole company. So that creates a unique situation, and everybody go, what is this guy talking about? Well, look at the number of fintechs in Utah, and that'll tell you a hell of a lot right there. There's a reason everybody's there.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then where are all of these, call them ILC charters at? There's only 2 that weren't in Utah. So they're all in Utah, basically. And it's for that.
Yeah. A couple of other states are trying, but Utah's issued a couple recently. So
Yeah. And you got Wyoming trying to be the crypto capital of the world. And Howard does a great job there, and I'm sure they will. So there's a changing landscape right now. And I think what's happening is that, we talked earlier in this conversation about the misinformation from the people that aren't the doers. And that's why I love talking to people like you. This is this guy's a repeat offender at, creating a unique business and selling it, right?
Sold
no one, Dave. Much more than I am. You're a repeat offender. So
but he sold the Biller Direct stuff to Q2, played there for a good while, was at ClickSwitch. Did you go work for a bank or a credit union for a while? I mean, you're all over the place.
I did, actually. Yeah.
Greatest story in the world.
Yeah.
The guy makes millions of dollars, sells his company, and wants to learn more about banking. So he goes into work in a financial institution so that he can create his next company. That level of effort is just not seen today. It's why I love this guy.
Yeah, me too, man.
Hats off to you.
Thank you. But it's also the reason why I joined a bank board, right? Like I am fast. I think one of my favorite books is called The Ascent of Money. And I am fascinated by like how money is made. And especially like a friend of mine was like, we haven't seen any innovation. Like everything is just something that's already exists already in financial services. I'm like, no, you are wrong. Like, like Robinhood's model was never seen before. It was like, we're going to sell data, regardless of whether you're okay with the model, right? We're going to sell data instead of charging people for a trade. I mean, to some extent it had been done, but not very much, right? And the whole crypto DeFi space is one that's really interesting. Like this picture behind me is a proto-cuneiform tablet. It's the first example of writing that we have in the world, and it was to create a financial transaction, right? And like, there's a lot of evidence that says that that's why we invented writing, was to create a financial transaction, right? And but the problem was when that clay tablet broke, it's like, oh crud, like we don't have the record of the transaction, right? And the ability for blockchain and some of these DeFi applications, banks, I think, really need to get on the bandwagon soon on that front.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. We have been so neck deep, so many late nights just picking things apart, right?
Taking Polygon to the 19th level.
Yeah, man. And
yeah.
I think everybody's looking too much at, the crypto as an asset class. Let's look at the technology and the infrastructure, right? And look at, I'm thinking smart contracts, that side of the world, to your point. That's the next evolution of your clay tablet, man. And I mean, it might be the last one. I mean, that's pretty far out there.
Yeah, if I was Visa and MasterCard, I'd be rethinking the whole game right now.
Well, you start thinking about payments, you start thinking about networks, routing, and switches.
Yeah.
And,
I think it's the biggest chance we have for somebody to displace Visa is this crypto thing. Like somebody could build the next Visa network on a payment rails.
They hit the 321 or 222 rather ISO basically to roll through crypto. So they're trying to grab it before it gets off the ground too quick.
That's right.
And hats off to them for that.
Which should tell us, I think, to Jordan's point, like banks need to pay attention to this one, right?
And you have governments that are now saying Bitcoin's going to be our currency potentially. I mean, like that is insane. And yeah, there's small countries in Latin America or something like that right now, but it could grow beyond that. And with how unstable Bitcoin is, it's way more stable than their currency, and it goes up in value over time. Generally, and it has, right? So I think Bitcoin has some drawbacks. Obviously, Jack Dorsey's just like way behind it, which will probably be very helpful for Bitcoin, but Ethereum has a lot of drivers behind it too. There are some good ones that I think bankers will be able to, can you capture the payment rails? Can you be, and now that Visa's not taking the interchange fee, can you be like participating in that 100%? Like what are the opportunities? Smart contracts are even better example, right? But just payments itself, I think could be totally revolutionized.
This is what I was saying in the beginning about the hope that we have right now. This is the coolest time to be in this business. There's so much going on and can fundamentally change it. And it's you guys that do it. And
it's you guys, right? Like all of us are trying to push it forward. And we've been talking about this for a few years now, right? Just like some of these really fun things that are happening that, I get such a kick out of the fact that there's a bunch of Bitcoin millionaires out there that saw this thing early on and they're weirdos. Like a bunch of them, I'm friends with them, and I was like, you're nuts. Like 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I was like, you're crazy. And like a buddy of mine actually did a documentary called like My Bitcoin Life or something like that, like 8 years ago. And I was just like, I looked at it. It's like, I just don't see it ever taking off. I was super cynical, and now he's got millions of dollars just in Bitcoin, and I love that it really levels the playing field of finance in a way that has not really been done before. It's obviously been getting better over time as people's incomes increase and all that sort of stuff, but it really levels the field of finance to these people that are like, no, the world needs to be more libertarian, lean this way. Yeah, anyway.
But you're right, though. These people were nuts 9 years ago, right? All of a sudden, everything's being built off Ethereum. So it's happening. And this new rail. So, again, to kind of lower the conversation a little bit here, it was 3% to accept a Visa payment or whatever. And then you can move $1 zillion across the planet.
For nickel.
For nickel. It's like, I think I'll go that way.
Yeah.
Has it got the potential to totally overtake our payment system as we know it? Absolutely. And I don't even think it's a question anymore. It's going to. It's a matter of how. And for the bankers and the other people out here that are watching all this, hey man, you don't have to come up with the answer. You don't have to figure it all out today. But you can see the excitement, everybody talking about it.
Just go play and learn and participate. I think where I feel it a lot from bankers and the questions that I get, Jordan probably similar. They're looking at it like, well, can you do a mortgage with Bitcoin, right? And I don't think that it's the currency class that's really the conversation. It's the underlying blockchain infrastructure conversation, to your point of the tablet, right? It's how we move money, not the money itself.
Okay, real quick. So we've got a comic here. We've got cool fintech companies. You mentioned half a dozen of them already. This is neat. And then we have this conversation about crypto. Guys, this whole thing is about to go.
Yeah.
All right. Bankers, if you're over here going, I don't believe in Atomic, I don't believe in these fintech guys, you better.
Well, look at the success. Jordan, I'm not going to honk your horn too loud here, brother, but I'm seeing news, press. You guys are a topic all
You're
the time.
everywhere.
I'm talking to people. I'm getting calls about you guys. I mean, you're white hot. I'll give you final thoughts, man. Tell me what have you not been asked? What's not talked about enough? What's the big theme going forward? Any of that kind of stuff.
I want to hear this.
Yeah. Look, you can see the wheels spinning, man.
Man, I would go back to the DeFi thing because I think it's the biggest thing that's going to hit banks in a major way. But I also think that the reason I joined the bank board that I did is because they targeted. I mean, I love when their current president was on a podcast recently, and he was asked like how they service all these different things. He's like, oh, we don't care about all the things. We only care about one thing. And we're going to do that really, really well. We're do it better than anybody. And I think where community banks really struggle is trying to be everything to everyone they service. How can you compete with Chase, who has infinite resources practically and all this sort of stuff? And I think that's something that I just wish more community banks would try to do, is just say, we're just going to find something that we're really, really good at. And here you have this company this bank that's now bringing in tens of millions of deposits a month, zero cost deposits, tens of millions a month. And they're like $300, $400 million bank growing like crazy because they honed in on a single thing. And they're like, we're just going to do this better than anybody else in the country. I love people that are willing to
Basically, you outlined what sponsor banks are.
Well,
we
every
do one
bank,
little thing really well, and most of our customers don't even know we're a sponsor.
every community bank you talk to, they tell you the thing that makes them different is their customer service. And it's hard to tell somebody you need to abandon that. That's not what you mean, but I do think you need to find a niche, to your point. I mean, if you went and talked to Brian Unruh at MBKC, he'd probably tell you fintech. You remember at the roundup when he was asked, how do you get started in sponsor bank and fintech? And he's like, have a conversation.
Brian is a great example of it because now he's bringing all these deposits from his partners and he's built a great mortgage business on top of all those deposits that he's bringing in. So it's not like he's not doing some traditional banking things. He is, but he's funding them without having to go and be a traditional bank and say, need a bunch of depositors to be able to give me, like he can just say, oh yeah, I've got all these fintech partners that bring in a ton of deposits for me and I can go lend those out. Especially with the change in the ruling for whether or not the funds are considered, what's the name of it again? Like at one point, they were considered a certain type of funds that couldn't be lent out at the same ratios as normal funds that you have in the bank from your own depositors. And that was changed.
Cross River being responsible for getting a lot of that changed. That really helped.
It's a big
fintech
deal.
Because it gets the boots out of the capital requirement.
Time deposits.
Exactly. They're treating them as brokered deposits, and that was wrong.
Yeah, it was brokered deposits. That was the name of it. Yeah, exactly. And they kind of changed how they view these funds that aren't brokered deposits.
Yeah,
hey, man,
fun.
To kind of put a bow on this, wrap this thing up, predict the future for me. Tell me where fintech and banking really smash into each other in a positive way.
Definitely. I mean, they already are, in my opinion, on being able to decrease the cost of banking for consumers. Like that's clearly something the Chimes of the world and others are really making it so that you don't have to charge somebody $200 a year to bank them, right? Or $400 a year to bank them. I think that's really exciting for the average regular Joe. It gets a lot of people into banking that weren't in banking before, hopefully gets them creating some wealth as well. I think that's a place that it's already doing that. But man, lending on the crypto space also, and interest rates and things like that, they're able to touch like opportunities. I don't know. It's going to be a weird next couple of years because you can't keep offering 8 to 10, 12% interest accounts on these. I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think that's a neat way in which fintech and banking comes together. I think cross-border payments will only get better because of crypto. It'll dramatically limit the cost of sending money overseas, which is a big deal for a lot of people, especially coming to the United States. I think I heard some crazy stat that like 1 in 3 nurses in California is Filipino or something like that. And a ton of them send money overseas. So I think you'll see groups leveraging crypto to be able to do that kind of stuff. But I think the big effect that I am excited about is that it will increase the standard of living for people all over the United States and around the world as they continue to come together.
Dude,
Hey.
thanks a bunch, man.
Really appreciate your time. And everybody, if you don't know Jordan Wright, reach out, say hi. Great guy to know, and does so much for our business.
Proud
all
and
fronts.
thankful for you, man.
Likewise, feel the same about you guys. Thank you.